The conference room felt like a cell. Every word from Wade's mouth was another iron bar sliding into place around me. "This proposal is garbage," he said, his voice ricocheting off the walls. "Did you even research any of this before wasting everyone's time?" I stood at the front, my slides still glowing behind me. 22 pairs of eyes, board members, regional managers, the executive team, watched in silence. No one spoke. No one stepped in. I started to explain. I began. "No, let me explain." I tried again, but Wade cut me off as he stood. "This is what happens when we promote people who aren't ready. This is what happens when standards drop." He crossed the room and grabbed my printed proposal. "Look at this. Page after page of unrealistic projections. Did you think we wouldn't notice? Did you think we're all as incompetent as you?" My heart pounded. I'd poured 3 weeks into this, nights, weekends, early mornings, only for him to dismantle it in front of everyone who mattered. "If we followed these suggestions, we'd lose millions. Is that what you want, Alice? To bankrupt us with your stupidity?" Someone coughed. Another person shifted. The clock showed we were just 15 minutes into a 2-hour meeting. Wade wasn't done. "Maybe you're confused about your role here. You're not an innovator. You're not a leader. You're barely qualified to be in this room." He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Everyone here is wondering why you're here. I'm wondering too. What do you actually bring to this company? Because from where I stand, it's nothing." Minutes stretched into an hour. His attack broadened beyond the proposal to every project I'd touched in the past year. Small mistakes dredged up, my education and experience questioned, my intelligence insulted. "You're worthless to this team," he finally spat, slamming his hand on the table. Completely worthless. The room went numb. 75 minutes of relentless degradation lingered in the air. I looked at him, then at the faces around the table. Some stared at notes, some avoided my eyes. A few watched me with something like pity. I breathed in slowly and straightened. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Are you finished?" Wade blinked, thrown off by the calm. "Because if you are," I continued, "I'd like to address the actual numbers in my proposal." His mouth opened, then closed. "We don't need to waste more time on this," he said. "Then perhaps we should adjourn," I suggested. The meeting ended abruptly. As people filed out, I gathered my things with steady hands. Wade stormed out without looking back. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't only been recording today's meeting. I'd been documenting everything for months. Tomorrow would change everything. If you want to know what happened next in this workplace showdown, hit the like button and subscribe to catch the full story. The events that follow will show exactly why you never underestimate someone you've pushed too far. Drop a comment if you've witnessed or experienced workplace bullying. Sharing helps more people find this story. My name is Alice Kwan. 6 months ago, I was a senior project developer at Trinity Innovations, a mid-sized tech firm with big ambitions and even bigger egos. I wasn't born able to stand through a public execution disguised as a meeting. That version of me was forged by months of careful, patient planning. When I joined Trinity, I was excited. The company had a strong reputation for innovation, solid benefits, and room to grow. What the job posting didn't mention was Wade Barrett, my direct supervisor and the company's golden boy. His department outperformed the rest. His projects came in under budget, and the CEO treated him like family. I learned too late that his success came with a toll. 3 women had left his department in the 2 months before I arrived. In my first week, the HR director casually admitted turnover had been high lately, then brushed it off as a cycle. The pattern became obvious within weeks. Wade was charming to those above him and brutal to those below. My first encounter with his temper came after I suggested a different approach in a team meeting. "If we restructured the database this way," I said, pointing at my notes, "we could reduce processing time by about 40%. Wade actually smiled before answering, "That's an interesting theory from someone who's been here all of 5 minutes. When you understand how things actually work here, maybe your input will be valuable." The room fell silent. My face heated as I pretended to write something down, masking the sting of a public dismissal as if it were constructive feedback. That moment set the tone. Small criticisms grew into open contempt. He interrupted me in meetings, gave impossible deadlines, then called my work rushed. He left me off critical emails and then blamed me for missing information I never received. I wasn't the only target. Nena in marketing had her campaign ideas taken and then criticized. Danielle in finance was passed over for promotion 3 times despite flawless reviews. Jeremy, the only male assistant in the office, was dismissed as the secretary despite an MBA and technical skill. We all had reasons to stay: financial necessity, stubbornness, or a refusal to be driven out. For me, it became something else. 3 months in, I visited my grandmother May in the hospital. She'd built a business from a single shop in the 1970s into an empire most people didn't know about. Lying in bed, elegant despite the tubes and monitors, she listened as I vented about Wade. "You could find another job," she said when I finished. "With your skills, any company would be lucky." "That's what he wants," I replied. "He breaks people until they leave, then hires someone new." Grandmother studied me, her eyes sharp despite the illness. "What do you want to do about it?" I answered honestly. "I want him to face real consequences, not a slap on the wrist." She nodded, then recited something my great-grandmother used to say. "The patient hunter doesn't chase the prey. She makes a path that leads the prey to her." I asked what that meant here. Grandmother smiled. "Sometimes the strongest response isn't walking away or fighting right away. It's waiting and creating the right circumstances." "I'm not sure I have that kind of patience," I admitted. She looked at me, her voice calm but firm. "You're more like me than you realize." She reached for my hand. "Tell me everything about this man and this company." Every detail. That moment changed everything. In the months that followed, as her health faded, we spoke constantly about Wade, about Trinity's corporate structure, about the people his behavior had driven out or trapped. She asked questions I never would have considered, searching for patterns and weaknesses. "Companies protect men like him because they deliver results," she explained. "If you want change, you need leverage. Evidence isn't enough. You need something that threatens what the company values most." 2 weeks before she died, she asked me to bring my laptop to the hospital. She dictated an email to her attorney, one I didn't fully understand at the time. When I asked what it meant, she only said, "In both of us." After she passed, I buried myself in work, partly out of grief, partly because something inside me had shifted. I began watching Wade differently. Not just his cruelty, but the careful way he shaped perceptions, built alliances, and isolated his targets. And I started keeping records. Not just notes, but real evidence. I installed an app to record meetings. I saved emails, screenshots, performance reviews. I built a timeline, not only of my own experiences, but of others. Then came the board presentation. My proposal, a complete overhaul of our client onboarding process, would either prove my worth or hand Wade the ammunition he needed to destroy me. He thought he knew which way it would go, but I didn't. No, until the phone rang the next morning that my grandmother had set a plan in motion long before she died. It was 7:15 a.m., an unfamiliar number. "Is this Alice Kwan?" a man asked. "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Robert Chen. I was your grandmother's attorney for more than 30 years. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. "Mr. Chen, she spoke of you often. I'm calling because it's time to open what May referred to as your contingency package." She left strict instructions. It was to be delivered exactly 3 months after her passing, unless you contacted me first with a specific phrase. My heart pounded. What phrase? "Are you finished?" The room spun. Those were the exact words I'd spoken to Wade the day before. "Your grandmother had an extraordinary gift," Robert said gently. "She could read people better than anyone I've ever known. Are you able to meet this morning? There's much to discuss." 2 hours later, I sat in a glass-walled office downtown as Robert spread documents across his desk. "Trinity Innovations is owned by Ascendant Capital Group," he explained. 15 years ago, your grandmother quietly began acquiring shares through holding companies. By the time she passed, she controlled nearly 12% of Ascendant, making her estate one of its largest minority shareholders. I was stunned. My grandmother didn't just know about my company, she owned part of it. Not just that, Robert continued. She served on Ascendant's advisory board through a proxy for the past decade. She took a special interest in their so-called corporate culture initiatives. His look told me exactly what he thought of those. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were complaints filed against Wade Barrett. Dozens of them. 36 women, 12 men, Robert said quietly. All either filed formal complaints or named him as their reason for leaving. 11 were paid settlements. If they know he's a problem, why keep him? I asked. Numbers, Robert replied. His department outperforms projections by 20% year after year. To the CEO, those results are worth the payouts. His expression hardened. Your grandmother disagreed. He handed me another folder. Financial reports, staffing data, performance metrics. Wade's success is built on exploitation, Robert said. He hires brilliant people, pushes them past their limits, steals their work, then drives them out before they can gain recognition. His department thrives despite his leadership, not because of it. But so far, no one's connected the dots. My phone buzzed. A text from HR. Please come to the 5th floor conference room at 10:30. Robert glanced at it and smiled. Right on schedule. What exactly did my grandmother arrange? 3 board members aligned with her estate called an emergency meeting last night. They presented evidence of Wade's pattern, including recordings from yesterday's presentation. Recordings? I only captured audio on my phone. The conference room itself records meetings for minute-taking, Robert explained. The board requested access. They reviewed those recordings alongside your data and the complaints. I felt dizzy. What happens now? That depends on you. He handed me a sealed envelope. Your grandmother left specific instructions. Read this before your meeting. In the bathroom, with shaking hands, I opened it. My dearest Alice, if you are reading this, then Wade has finally revealed his true nature, just as I knew he would. Men like him cannot resist. They confuse kindness with weakness, patience with fear. Now you have a choice. The board is ready to remove him today. They will compensate you and promise reforms. That is the easy path. The harder path, the one I believe you will choose, demands courage, but it will create lasting change. Wade is only a symptom of a deeper sickness, a culture that values profit over people. Removing him won't cure the system. I've arranged another option. Robert has the details. It means facing Wade again, but on entirely different terms. Remember, true power is not in destruction, it is in transformation. And I believe in you completely. At 10:30, I walked into the same conference room where Wade had humiliated me the day before. The HR director, the CEO, and 3 board members were waiting. Ms. Kwan, the CEO began. We need to discuss yesterday's incident with Wade Barrett. Before we begin, I said, opening my folder, I'd like to make a proposal. Their expressions shifted, sympathy giving way to surprise, as I laid out my grandmother's plan. By the time I finished, the CEO was leaning forward. Captivated. That's unprecedented, he admitted. So is a manager driving out 48 employees in 8 years, I countered. One of the senior board members, a woman with silver hair, gave a faint smile. May always did think differently. I'm curious to see if her vision proves correct. At 11:45, Wade was summoned to HR. I wasn't there for that meeting, but Robert soon texted me. Wade's face had gone pale. Phase 2 has begun. Back at my desk, I tried to steady myself, but before long, Wade appeared. His confident stride was gone. His hands trembled as he shut the door of a small meeting room. We need to talk, he whispered. Your grandmother had that much influence with the board? Why didn't you ever mention it? I asked, still standing with my arms crossed. Are you finished? He flinched at the words. Look, I didn't know. No one told me about your connections. Would it even have mattered? Would you have treated me differently than the others who walked away? That's exactly why I never said a word. His eyes widened. The board's questioning everything now. Years of my work? No, I cut in. They're questioning why 48 people left under your leadership. They're questioning the human cost of your behavior. Wade paced the cramped room. They told me I either leave immediately or accept some kind of position under you. That can't be right. It's not under me. It's a new division. Workplace culture and accountability. This is insane. I'm the highest performing manager in the company. Are you? Or do you just take credit for other people's work before driving them away? His face flushed. That marketing campaign that won the award last year? That wasn't you. It was Nana. You called her idea pedestrian 3 times in meetings before presenting a polished version to the board, identical to her original proposal. Wade's mouth opened, then closed. And Jeremy's client system that saved the company millions? You dismissed it as amateur, then pitched it as your own innovation 2 weeks later. You can't prove it. It's all documented. Every stolen idea, every person you forced out, every lie you told. I moved toward the door. Your choice is simple. Leave with nothing, or join the new division and finally learn what leadership actually looks like. A trainee position? After 15 years here? That's humiliating. More humiliating than what you did to me yesterday? More humiliating than what you've done to dozens of others? I opened the door. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. As I walked away, his voice followed me. Alice, wait. We can work something out. I didn't turn back. That night I couldn't sleep. Had I gone too far? Or not far enough? What if the company decided my grandmother's plan was too much trouble and just paid Wade a generous severance, setting him loose to repeat the same cycle somewhere else? At 6 a.m., my phone rang. Robert's voice was blunt. He's accepted the position. He's staying. I couldn't hide my shock. The financial incentives convinced him, Robert explained. If he quits, he has to repay 5 years of bonuses. If he's fired for cause, he loses his stock options. But if he completes a year in the program, he keeps everything. So he chose money over pride. People usually do, Robert replied. The real question is, are you ready for what comes next? I thought of my grandmother's letter. This path requires you to face Wade again, but on entirely different terms. I'm ready. The new division launched Monday. Wade arrived to find his corner office reassigned. His new spot? A small desk in the open floor, directly across from mine. Waiting for him was a thick binder filled with exit interviews from employees who had left because of him. Next to it, a phone and a list of numbers. What's this? His voice was tight. Your first assignment. You'll call every person on that list. You won't defend yourself, you won't argue, you'll just listen. And acknowledge. This is ridiculous. I'm not calling. Then you're walking out without your bonuses or stock options. Your choice. He sank into the chair, stunned. The board approved this unanimously. They're very interested in this. Experiment, Wade stared at the phone. And you'll be what, my babysitter? I'll be your supervisor. Just like you were mine. I handed him a performance review template, the same kind he had used to tear me apart. We'll meet weekly. The look he gave me carried so much hatred I almost stepped back. Almost. Instead, I smiled. Start with Nana. She's expecting your call at 9. The first call was brutal to watch. Wade's face shifted from anger to defensiveness to something closer to shame as Nana spoke. When he finally hung up, he looked shaken. 1 down, I said. 47 to go. As I walked back to my desk, I felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. This wasn't traditional revenge. There'd be no dramatic firing, no public spectacle. Well, none beyond what he was already enduring. Instead, Wade would face something harder. A slow, daily reckoning with the consequences of his actions. Would it change him? I didn't know. But it would change the company, and in that moment, I could almost see my grandmother smiling. What? I didn't realize then was that Wade's journey into accountability was only beginning, and the true test of her plan would come from places neither of us expected. The following weeks felt like a strange social experiment. Every morning, Wade arrived at 8 sharp, his expression a careful mask. He'd nod stiffly at greetings, then sit at his small desk and start working. By the end of the first week, he had called 15 former employees. Some hung up within minutes after unloading years of resentment. Others spoke for over an hour, detailing stolen projects, denied credit, public humiliation. I observed from a distance. His posture shifted. His once arrogant shoulders curved inward. The proud tilt of his chin dropped. His booming voice softened. After each call, he wrote in a journal, as the program required. Sometimes I caught him staring into space, haunted. Is this really necessary? He asked after a particularly harsh call with Jeremy, who had left just 6 months earlier. Which part? I asked. This. He gestured at the open office where everyone could witness his downfall in real time. I could do these calls privately. The point isn't just to hear their stories. Wade, it's for you to know what it feels like to be vulnerable, out in the open, just like they were. He didn't answer, but his jaw tightened. By week 3, whispers spread through the company. People who had avoided me after the board meeting now stopped by my desk with coffee or invited me to lunch. They shared their own Wade stories. He made me redo a presentation 5 times, said Lynn from Product. Each time he said it wasn't good enough but never explained why. On the 6th version he said finally and presented it as his own. He told me my ideas were too emotional for a technical role, said Tyler from Engineering. 3 months later, he implemented them anyway. The pattern was always the same: belittle, steal, promote himself. Wade must have overheard the conversations around him. His eyes stayed locked on his computer screen, but the redness creeping up his ears gave him away. At our first monthly review, I handed Wade a summary of feedback from his calls along with a self-assessment form. This feels like punishment, not training, he muttered, shoving the paper aside. It's accountability, I corrected. Something you've never truly experienced. So that's what this is? Revenge, I paused, choosing my words carefully. If I wanted revenge, Wade, you'd already be unemployed and unemployable. This is about something much more important. He narrowed his eyes. More important than watching me suffer? What could that be? Change, I said simply. Real, lasting change. Not just for you, but for everyone in this company. Real? He gave a bitter laugh. You actually believe one person can change an entire corporate culture? My grandmother did, I replied. That silenced him. Over the following weeks, Wade followed through with calls to former employees and then moved into the next stage, working directly with the people he had once mistreated at Trinity. This meant sitting in meetings, not as a feared leader, but as the lowest-ranking team member. He listened. He took notes. He spoke only when invited. By week 6, the first cracks in my grandmother's plan appeared. I arrived one morning to find Robert waiting at my desk, his face grave. We have a situation, he said quietly. What kind of situation? 3 executives from Wade's old department have approached the board. They're arguing the program is hurting productivity. Since Wade's reassignment, his former team's numbers are down 15%. That's because they relied on him to steal ideas from other departments, I shot back. The board understands that, Robert said. But the pressure is mounting. These executives are threatening to resign if Wade isn't reinstated. They're bluffing. He shook his head. 2 already have competing offers. If they leave, others could follow. A cold knot twisted in my stomach. So, the board is considering ending the program? Robert nodded. They've scheduled a meeting for Friday. They want you to prove the program's value. It's only been 6 weeks. We don't have enough data yet. He rested a hand on my shoulder. Then you'll have to find another way to convince them. That evening, I spread my notes across my apartment floor, searching for a strategy. The board wanted numbers. But the most important progress, the cultural shifts, the renewed confidence among silenced employees, couldn't be measured so quickly. My phone rang. It was Nina. I heard about the board meeting, she said without preamble. How? Wade told me. I sat up straighter. He contacted you? Yes. He called to follow up on our last conversation. He wanted to know if there were other projects where he'd taken credit for my work. He asked specific questions. And he took notes. Her voice softened. Honestly, he seemed different. After the call, I sat staring at my phone. Was Wade truly engaging with the program, or preparing some kind of counterattack? The next day, his desk sat empty. His calendar showed no meetings. When he finally returned after lunch, he gave me a brief nod but said nothing. This continued for 3 days. Hours away, brief returns, then gone again. Each time, he looked distracted. On Thursday, the day before the board meeting, I confronted him. "Where have you been?" He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Working on what? Because it's not the assignments I've given you." After a pause, Wade reached into his bag and pulled out a thick folder. Inside was a detailed analysis of every project his department had handled over the past 5 years. Each page listed the original creators, the team members' real contributions, and Wade's, often minimal, input. "You've been documenting your own theft," I said. Stunned. "I've been documenting the truth," he corrected. "Isn't that the point of this program?" I flipped through the pages, each one more damning than the last. "Why?" Wade ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I had never seen from him before. "Because after 47 phone calls, hearing the same story about myself, I couldn't ignore it anymore." "And this helps you how?" "It doesn't," he admitted. "It helps them, the people whose work I took." I studied his face, searching for deception. "You're giving up your greatest protection. Without the illusion that you're irreplaceable, the board could still decide to fire you." "I know." For the first time since I'd met him, Wade looked uncertain. "But living like this, always keeping track of lies, always looking over my shoulder, it's exhausting." He gestured toward the folder. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from Robert. The board meeting had been moved up. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. "They're not giving us much time," I muttered. "Us?" Wade raised an eyebrow. I tapped the folder in my hand. "If you're serious about this, then yes, us." That night, we worked past midnight in the conference room, sorting through WDE's documentation and shaping our presentation. The whole thing felt surreal, working beside the same man who had spent months tearing me down, now suddenly aligned with my goal. During a short break, I asked, "Why did you do it? Why treat people that way for so long?" Wade was silent so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "Fear. I was terrified of being exposed as not good enough, not smart enough. So I stole other people's brilliance and passed it off as mine. That doesn't excuse it." "No," I replied quietly. "No," he agreed. The next morning, the boardroom was tense from the start. The 3 executives who had filed complaints sat together, smugly presenting their concerns about declining productivity and disruptions to established workflows. When they finished, the CEO turned to me. "Ms. Kwan, your response?" I stood to speak, but before I could, Wade rose. "If I may, I'd like to address the board first." Surprised murmurs swept through the room. The CEO gave a cautious nod. Wade set his folder on the table. "For 8 years, I've portrayed myself as Trinity's most valuable asset." That was a lie. For the next 30 minutes, he exposed everything: his stolen ideas, the suppressed innovations, the talented people he had driven away. He named names, cited projects, and backed it all with documentation we had organized. "The success attributed to me belongs to at least 48 other people," he concluded. People who were silenced, dismissed, or pushed out. "That isn't leadership, it's theft." The room fell into stunned silence. One of the executives went pale. Another frantically texted under the table. "So, what are you suggesting?" the CEO asked finally. Wade looked at me, then back at the board. "I suggest you listen to Alice Kwan's original proposal, the same one I attacked 3 months ago. It wasn't just about client onboarding. It was about reshaping how we value contributions across the company." As Wade sat down, I felt the atmosphere shift. Board members who had seemed skeptical now leaned forward with interest. The CEO's expression softened from impatience to thoughtfulness. I presented my proposal, now expanded with data from the Workplace Culture and Accountability Program. I explained how recognizing individual contributions while fostering true collaboration, could unlock greater productivity than fear and control ever could. When I finished, the CEO turned to the three executives. "Do you have a response?" They exchanged uneasy glances. "We'd need time to review," one began. "I think we've heard enough," interrupted a silver-haired board member who had supported my grandmother's plan from the beginning. "I move that we continue the program as established and immediately implement Miss Kwan's restructuring proposal." The vote was unanimous. As the meeting adjourned, Wade approached me. "Was this what your grandmother intended all along?" I thought of May's letter. True power isn't in destruction, it's in transformation. "I think she hoped for change," I said softly. But even she couldn't have predicted this outcome. A year later, Trinity Innovations was featured in a business magazine, Culture Correction: How One Company Turned Toxic Leadership into Collaborative Success. The article highlighted our restructured departments, transparent credit policies, and dramatically improved retention. Wade completed the accountability program and accepted a role as a regular team member. No title, no corner office. Just steady, thoughtful work, never again claiming another person's ideas. Some never fully trusted him, but many came to respect his commitment to change. As for me, I was promoted to lead the Permanent Workplace Culture Division, reporting directly to the board. My client onboarding system, the one Wade once dismissed as garbage, was rolled out company-wide and raised client satisfaction by 42%. My grandmother's attorney, Robert, now sits on Trinity's board representing her estate's interests. Together, we've helped 3 other companies build similar accountability programs. The most meaningful moment came 6 months after that fateful meeting. A young developer stepped nervously into my office, clutching her laptop. "I have an idea," she whispered, "but I'm afraid to share it. What if someone takes it?" I smiled and pointed to the framed quote on my wall, my grandmother's words. "True power isn't in destruction, it's in transformation." "That won't happen here," I assured her. "Not anymore. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe." Have you ever witnessed a workplace transformation, personal or organizational? Share your story in the comments below. Remember, change often begins with one voice brave enough to say, "Are you finished?" Sometimes, your story is the spark someone else needs to find their courage.